This video is about the different types of information sources and recognizing those that are appropriate for college-level research. What do you think about when you think about information? Numbers, data, newspapers, the internet? According to information theory, information is anything that decreases in uncertainty. And information comes in containers. An information container is anything that holds information. This could be anything from a book to a tweet. Notice in this list that there are different levels of information containers. In other words, one container, like a book, might contain another container, like a chapter. Note too that I've listed books and ebooks together in this list. While the format may be different, the print copy and the ebook copy of the same title will have identical content. The same holds true for electronic versions of journal articles and magazine articles. In the abstract, these may be interesting distinctions, but why should we care about information containers? Well, two reasons. First, some kinds of information are more likely to be in some containers than others. This should be fairly obvious if you think about it. A 140-character tweet is unlikely to contain in-depth analysis of an issue, but it's a great place to look for an up-to-the-minute account of an ongoing event. If you know what you're trying to find out, it helps to know what kind of container is likely to provide it. Second, the container dictates how the information is cited. Anytime you use information from a source, in other words, anything that you did not come up with in your own brain, you must provide a citation to the container where you found the information. MLA actually uses the term information container. APA and Turabian don't call it the same thing, but the idea is the same. And why should we care about citing sources? Well, we cite for several reasons. One, to avoid plagiarism. Two, to inform your reader of where they can go to learn more about your topic. And three, most importantly, to provide support for your arguments. We will now examine both of the reasons why containers are important, beginning with what kinds of information might you be looking for and what kinds of containers might hold those kinds of information. Research is a lot like detective work. You start out by figuring out what you want to know. Once you know that, you can think about where you might go to find out. Here you can see some of the questions you might be trying to answer, such as how a past event unfolded or what current research in a field looks like, and the containers that would be your best bet for answering them. Most of these will be more or less familiar to you. Those that are less familiar we'll go over in just a minute. There are a number of ways we might think about information. The next few slides will look at some comparisons. This chart compares the breadth and depth of information you're likely to find in various containers. For example, investigative news is likely to go deeply into a narrow topic, while regular news, think CNN or Decatur Daily, is likely to cover that same narrow topic only shallowly. Notice that some containers, books and magazines in particular, are in more than one quadrant of the chart because they're so varied. Another way we can divide information is between factual information and analytical information. Factual information is true and verifiable. Analytical information is the interpretation of fact. Analysis might be subjective, meaning it presents a single viewpoint, or objective, meaning it endeavors to present multiple viewpoints for a more complete picture. Another way to compare information is to compare primary research and secondary research, not to be confused with primary and secondary sources, which we'll look at in a couple of slides. Primary research is when the researcher conducts an experiment, interviews someone, distributes a survey, collects data, or directly observes something. Secondary research is the summary, collation, and/or synthesis of existing research. The kind of research you're doing in this class is secondary. Primary research can be further broken down to qualitative or quantitative. Qualitative is subjective. It asks why or how and is more narrative in nature. Conducting an interview or doing a survey are examples of qualitative research. Quantitative research is objective. It asks who, what, when, or where, and is more numeric or statistical in nature. Be careful not to confuse primary and secondary research with primary and secondary sources. They're similar, but not identical. Primary sources include things like letters and diaries, newspaper articles published as an event was happening, or any raw, original, non-interpreted data. Secondary sources are sources that digest, analyze, evaluate, and interpret the information found in primary sources. And tertiary sources, like encyclopedias and other reference books, compile, analyze, and digest the information found in secondary sources. Another way to compare containers is to ask whether the information in them is scholarly or not. By scholarly, we mean rooted in academia and research. Note that scholarly is not synonymous with reliable. It is entirely possible to find reliable information in non-scholarly sources. However, in some fields, a non-scholarly source of information would not be appropriate to use in an academic paper, and you should always go by the guidelines provided by your professors. Since a few of the things listed here may be unfamiliar to you, let's look now at some definitions. Nonfiction books may be either scholarly or popular. A scholarly or academic book provides deep and/or broad coverage of a specific topic within an academic discipline. It's written by an expert who is a scholar in a particular field, whereas a popular nonfiction book could be written by anyone. Scholarly books are published by university presses and other recognized academic publishers, while popular nonfiction books are published by trade presses like HarperCollins or Macmillan or something like that, or are self-published. Scholarly journals are published by an academic society or organization and contain articles authored by academics for academics. They often contain abstracts or summaries of the articles, and articles are usually on the longer side, may be divided into sections, and will always contain reference lists. Scholarly journals contain very little advertising and few images. Peer-reviewed journals are a special variety of scholarly journal. Peer review means that when an author submits an article to the journal, the editor will send it to other experts in the author's academic field for review. The reviewers determine whether the article is worthy of publication or not and make a recommendation to the editor. Peer review may be blind, meaning the reviewers don't know who the author is, or double blind, meaning neither party knows who the other is. Before we move on from scholarly journals, a quick note. Not every article in a peer-reviewed journal is peer-reviewed. Journals may publish editorials, opinion pieces, and book reviews alongside the peer-reviewed articles. So when you're searching for sources to use in your own research, be aware of this and make sure that what you're looking at is not just a review or an essay. Unlike scholarly journals, trade journals and popular magazines tend to publish short articles written not by experts, but by staff writers and reporters. Trade journals cater to industry professionals, while popular magazines cater to the general public, though they may focus on a niche topic. These kinds of publications are heavy on advertising, contain lots of glossy images, and rarely cite their sources. In most cases, they are not appropriate sources for academic papers. We've looked at books and periodicals. Now let's look at reference sources. Reference sources are usually books, though many are now found online, that are meant to be delved into a little bit at a time in pursuit of specific factual information. Reference sources are especially useful for doing pre-research. Pre-research is exploratory and can help you to select a topic or to get a good overview of a topic with which you're unfamiliar. If you can get familiar with it can get you familiar with the terminology used in a field, provide you with background information, and inspire new ways of thinking about your topic. There are lots of different kinds of reference sources, so I'll go over a few of the most common ones in the remaining slides. Encyclopedias provide a comprehensive summary of information, either from all branches of knowledge in the case of a general encyclopedia, or from a particular field or discipline in the case of a subject encyclopedia. Encyclopedias are usually arranged alphabetically, usually have an index, and often come in multi-volume sets. A dictionary is a compendium of words and their definitions, usually arranged alphabetically. It may also provide information about a word's history and pronunciation. Dictionaries may be general, bilingual, or on a particular field or subject. A thesaurus is a list of words and their synonyms and/or antonyms. The Statistical Abstract of the United States, now published exclusively online, is a collection of statistics gathered annually by dozens of U.S. governmental departments. Athens State University Library subscribes to the Statistical Abstract of the United States, and you will be using it in one of your assignments. Some other common types of reference sources include almanacs, yearbooks, gazetteers, maps and atlases, bibliographies, catalogs, and wikis. Athens State University Library subscribes to a number of reference sources that are listed here. Country Watch provides data on every country in the world, from population statistics to history to culture and etiquette. Credo Reference is a collection of over 700 reference books, mostly subject reference with a few general titles that can be browsed or searched. Encyclopedia Britannica is the online version of the classic general encyclopedia. Oxford English Dictionary provides definitions and etymology for hundreds of thousands of words in the English language. Oxford Reference Online is a collection of around 200 titles, again, available to browse or search. And of course, the Statistical Abstract of the United States that was featured in the previous slide. In conclusion, remember that we have not covered every single possible type of information container. Remember too that the same information may exist in multiple containers. For example, a single title in multiple formats, or a small container inside of another larger container, like a chapter inside of a book. And finally, some kinds of information are more likely to be in some kinds of containers than others. For example, a write-up of a quantitative experiment is more likely to be in a scholarly journal, while an in-depth report of a current event is more likely to be in an investigative news magazine. Understanding information containers can help you to locate needed information more efficiently and can aid in citing your sources correctly. If you have any questions, please post them to the general discussion forum as usual, or you can email your instructor.